Have you ever felt that despite all your achievements, there's something inside you that still feels incomplete? As if a part of you, hidden in the depths of your being, is waiting to be recognized and healed. If so, you are not alone. You're experiencing the call of your inner child, that fundamental part of your psyche that Carl Jung, one of the most revolutionary thinkers in analytical psychology, considered essential for our complete development as human beings. Imagine for a moment that within you lives a younger version of yourself, a version that holds all the memories, wounds, joys, and dreams of your childhood. That version hasn't disappeared with time. It has simply taken refuge in the depths of your unconscious, silently influencing every decision you make, every relationship you build, every emotional reaction you experience. Jung called it the archetypal child, a universal part of our psyche that we all share. In a world that constantly pushes us forward, that demands productivity, rationality, and control, we have learned to ignore the whispers of our inner child. We've told it to be quiet, to grow up, to be reasonable. But according to Jung, this rejection comes at an enormous price, disconnection from our wholeness, from our authentic self, and therefore from our true power. Think about it. How many times have you repressed an emotion because it didn't seem appropriate? How many times have you ignored a creative impulse because it seemed irrational or impractical? How many times have you taken the safe path instead of venturing into the unknown? In each of those instances, you were silencing your inner child, that part of you that feels deeply, that dreams without limits, that instinctively knows what you need to be happy. Jung taught us that the unconscious is not simply a repository of repressed memories, as Freud suggested. For Jung, the unconscious is an infinite source of wisdom, creativity, and potential for transformation. And within that vast internal universe, the archetypal child represents our innate capacity for wonder, spontaneous joy, and genuine connection with ourselves and others. However, when our childhood is marked by painful experiences, unmet needs, or limiting messages, our inner child becomes wounded. It hides, taking vital parts of our essence with it, and from that hidden place, it begins to sabotage our adult life in ways we don't even understand. The toxic relationships we repeat, the patterns of self-sabotage, the irrational fears, the disproportionate reactions to certain situations, all are signs of an inner child crying out for attention and healing. Jung described this phenomenon as part of the individuation process, the path to psychic wholeness. For him, healing the inner child wasn't a luxury or a self-help trend. It was a fundamental step in integrating all aspects of our personality and becoming complete human beings. But how do we begin this healing journey? The first step, according to Jung, is to recognize the existence of our inner child. We must abandon the illusion that we are purely rational beings, controlled only by our conscious mind. We must accept that within us lives that younger version, with all its needs, fears, and desires. Think about the disproportionate reactions you sometimes have. Those moments when a seemingly small situation triggers an avalanche of intense emotions. Jung would tell us that in those moments, it's not the adult who is reacting, but the wounded child within you. A part of you that remained trapped in the past, reliving old wounds over and over again. The good news is that, according to Jung, these reactions are not something we should eliminate or control, but messages we should listen to. They are opportunities to identify where the pain is, where the wound that needs to be recognized and healed lies. Because only when we recognize our wounds, when we bring them to the light of consciousness, can we begin to free ourselves from their unconscious influence. Jung spoke of the shadow, that part of us that contains everything we have denied, repressed, or rejected. And often, our wounded child hides precisely in that shadow, carrying the emotions that were too overwhelming for us to process when we were little. Confronting the shadow is uncomfortable, even frightening at times, but it is the only path to integration and wholeness. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you could embrace that inner child, if you could tell it that it is now safe, that its emotions are valid, that its needs matter. Imagine how your life would change if you could recover all that vital energy you've spent keeping those parts of yourself repressed. Jung taught us that this integration process is not instantaneous. It's a path, a continuous journey of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Sometimes we advance, sometimes we retreat, but every step counts. Every time we recognize a reaction from our inner child, every time we validate an emotion we used to repress, we are healing. We are recovering fragments of our wholeness. One of Jung's most powerful concepts is that of synchronicity, those moments when the outer world seems to mysteriously align with our inner world. And often, when we begin to heal our inner child, we start to experience these synchronicities more frequently. It's as if the universe is responding to our decision to honor all parts of ourselves, even the most vulnerable ones. Have you ever wondered why you repeat certain patterns in your relationships? Perhaps you're attracted to people who aren't emotionally available, or you end up in dynamics where your needs always take a back seat. Jung would explain this as a manifestation of your wounded inner child, trying to recreate situations from the past with the unconscious hope that this time the outcome will be different. It's as if a part of you is trapped in a loop, seeking resolution of old wounds through new relationships. This pattern of repetition, which Jung called repetition compulsion, is not something you should judge or be ashamed of. It's simply a mechanism of psychic survival, a way your unconscious tries to process and resolve what was left unfinished. But to break this cycle, you need to recognize it. You need to see how your inner child is influencing your adult choices. One of the most profound aspects of Jung's work is his understanding that childhood wounds affect not only our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. That critical internal dialogue, that relentless judge living in your mind. Does it sound familiar? Jung would say that voice is not really yours. It's an internalization of external voices, parents, teachers, authority figures who, in your childhood, transmitted messages about your worth, your abilities, your limitations, and your inner child absorbed those messages as absolute truths. But here's the revolution Jung proposes. Those messages are not the truth about you. They are just limited perspectives, often transmitted by people who were also wounded, who also had their own unhealed inner children. Recognizing this is the first step to freeing yourself from those critical voices and beginning to relate to yourself from a place of compassion and acceptance. Imagine how your life would change if, instead of that relentless internal judge, you had a loving guide. Someone who would recognize your mistakes but also celebrate your strengths, who would offer understanding instead of criticism, who would encourage you to get up after each fall. According to Jung, that loving voice is already within you. It's yourself, the center of your psyche, the source of wisdom and wholeness. But to access it, you must first reconcile with your inner child. How can you begin this process of reconciliation? Jung proposed several techniques, including active imagination, a method that allows direct dialogue with the different parts of your psyche. You can visualize your inner child, ask what it needs, what it fears, what it dreams about. You can write letters to it, speak to it out loud, even draw or paint what you feel represents it. The important thing is to establish that bridge of communication, recognizing that this part of you is real and deserves to be heard. Another powerful technique Jung used was dream analysis. According to him, dreams are direct messages from the unconscious, and symbols related to the inner child often appear in them. A lost, frightened, or endangered child in your dreams could represent aspects of your inner child that need attention. A child playing freely could symbolize your potential for joy and spontaneous creativity. Paying attention to these symbols can offer valuable clues about your healing process. Jung also spoke about the importance of play and creativity as gateways to the inner child. In our productivity-oriented society, we have forgotten the importance of purposeless play, of creativity without expectations of results. But for Jung, these activities are not trivial. They are fundamental to our psychic health. When we play, When we create for the pure pleasure of doing so, we are nurturing our inner child, reconnecting with that part of us that finds joy in the simple act of existing. When was the last time you did something purely for fun, without worrying about whether you were doing it well or if it was productive? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be silly, to be spontaneous, to be simply you, without filters or self-censorship? Jung would invite you to reclaim those moments, to make space for them in your daily life. Not as a distraction or an escape, but as an essential way to honor your inner child. It's important to understand that healing the inner child doesn't mean returning to an infantile state. It's not about avoiding adult responsibilities or acting impulsively or irresponsibly. On the contrary, Jung teaches us that it is precisely when we integrate our inner child that we can be more complete, more authentic adults, more capable of responding to life from a place of wisdom rather than reactivity. A healthy inner child doesn't dominate your personality. It becomes a source of vitality, creativity, and intuition. It allows you to feel more deeply, connect more authentically, and live more fully. It allows you to access qualities such as spontaneous joy, natural curiosity, and the capacity for wonder, qualities that are fundamental to a rich and meaningful life. But this process doesn't happen overnight. Jung emphasized that individuation, the path to psychic wholeness, is a lifelong journey. There will be moments of progress and moments of setback. There will be days when you feel completely healed, and days when old wounds will seem as fresh as ever. This is normal. It's part of the process. The important thing is to stay on the path, to keep listening, to keep recognizing, to keep integrating. And although this journey may sometimes seem solitary, Jung reminds us that we are not alone. We all carry that wounded child within. We are all in the process of healing, of integrating, of becoming more complete. When you begin this inner work, you are not only freeing yourself, you are contributing to collective healing. You are breaking cycles of pain that could have been passed down from generation to generation. You are creating a new path, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Think about how your relationships change when you begin to heal your inner child. You no longer seek in others the validation or love you couldn't receive in your childhood. You no longer project your unrecognized wounds onto them. Instead, you relate from a place of wholeness, of authenticity, of true connection. And this, according to Jung, not only transforms your personal relationships, it transforms your relationship with the entire world. One of the most profound truths Jung revealed to us is that the way we relate to our inner world determines how we experience the outer world. When we reject parts of ourselves, when we deny our inner child, we experience the world as a hostile, threatening, lacking place. But when we begin to integrate all parts of our psyche, when we embrace our inner child with all its wounds and gifts, the world transforms. It becomes a place of possibilities, of beauty, of meaning. This is what Jung called projection. We project outward what we haven't recognized within. If you haven't recognized and embraced your vulnerable inner child, you're likely to see vulnerability everywhere, to feel constantly threatened, to need to control everything and everyone to feel safe. But when you recognize and embrace that vulnerability within you, you no longer need to defend against it externally. You can remain open, present, receptive to life as it unfolds. Imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you could free up all the energy you spend repressing your inner child, denying your emotions, maintaining a facade of control or perfection. Imagine what it would be like if you could channel that energy toward creativity, toward authentic relationships, toward work that truly passionate you. This is the power Jung invites us to discover through the process of individuation. But to access that power, you must be willing to face your shadow, to look directly at what you've been avoiding. You must be willing to feel the pain you've been repressing, to listen to the truths you've been denying. And this requires courage. It requires the willingness to be vulnerable, to admit that you don't have all the answers, to recognize that there are parts of you that are wounded and need attention. Jung understood that this journey is not easy. In fact, it often requires what he called a dark night of the soul, a period of confusion, doubt, and even despair, as the old structures of your psyche crumble to make way for something new. But he also knew that on the other side of that darkness is a light brighter than you could imagine, the light of your true self, of your reclaimed wholeness. Have you ever experienced a moment of absolute clarity? A moment when all the pieces seemed to fit together, when you felt a deep connection with yourself and everything around you? Jung called these numinous experiences and saw them as glimpses of what is possible when we have integrated our inner child, when we have reconciled the opposites within us, when we have found our way to wholeness. These moments are not coincidental. They are the natural result of doing the inner work, of listening to all parts of your psyche, of honoring your inner child with all its needs and gifts. And although we cannot force these experiences, we can create the conditions for them to occur by committing to our own process of individuation. Jung taught us that each of us has a unique purpose, a unique contribution to make to the world. But to discover and fulfill that purpose, we must be willing to look inward, to face our shadows, to embrace our inner child. Only then can we access the totality of our gifts, the fullness of our potential. This journey is not one you can undertake halfway. You cannot choose which parts of yourself you are willing to recognize and which ones you prefer to keep in the shadow. Individuation, according to Jung, requires a total commitment to the truth of who you are, with all your lights and shadows, strengths and vulnerabilities, certainties and doubts. And although this may sound overwhelming, Jung's promise is that on the other side of this commitment is a freedom you may never have imagined. The freedom to be authentically you, without apologies or explanations. The freedom to express your unique gifts in the world. The freedom to love and be loved from a place of wholeness, not from lack or fear. Are you ready to begin this journey? Are you willing to look within, to listen to your inner child, to face your shadows? You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to be willing to take the first step, to open that inner dialogue, to extend a hand to that part of you that has been waiting, perhaps your entire life, to finally be seen, heard, and loved. Jung reminds us that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. This awakening is what awaits you on the other side of working with your inner child. It's an awakening to your true power, to your authentic self, to the life you were always meant to live. The decision is in your hands. You can continue as before, ignoring the whispers of your inner child, repressing your emotions, living a fraction of what you could be. Or you can choose the path of courage, the path of wholeness, the path of healing. You can choose to look within, embrace that child you've been ignoring, and allow it, at last, to guide you toward your true power. Remember that you are not alone on this journey. Jung spent his life studying this process, mapping the inner territory so that we could find our way. And each person who undertakes this journey illuminates the path a little more for others. By choosing to heal your inner child, you are not only freeing yourself, you are contributing to collective healing. You are helping to create a world where we can all live from our authenticity and wholeness. Now is the time to pause and reflect. What part of this message has resonated most deeply with you? What aspect of your inner child do you feel needs the most attention and healing? Take a moment to listen to what arises in you, to honor those intuitive responses that come from a deeper place than your conscious mind. If this message has touched something within you, if you feel it has awakened a spark of recognition or understanding, I invite you to go deeper. Share this video with someone you think might benefit from hearing it. Leave a comment sharing your own experience or any insight that arose while you were listening to it. Every time we share our stories, when we speak openly about our healing process, we are creating a space where others can feel safe to do the same. And remember, this channel exists to accompany you on your journey of self-discovery and transformation. If you haven't done so already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos that might offer exactly what you need to hear at a given moment. Synchronicity, as Jung taught us, often brings us the words, ideas, connections we need just when we're ready to receive them. Thank you for dedicating this time to your inner growth, for having the courage to look within, to listen to your inner child, to begin or continue your journey toward wholeness. This is the most important work you can do, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you and for the whole world. Because as Jung knew, outer change always begins with inner change. And every time you heal a part of yourself, you are contributing to the healing of the whole. See you in the next video, where we will continue exploring together the mysteries of the human soul, the paths of transformation, and the unlimited power that is released when we finally embrace all parts of who we are. Until then, remember, your inner child has been waiting all your life to be heard. Perhaps now is the time to pay attention. There is no better time than now to begin the most important journey of your life, the journey to yourself, to your wholeness, to your true power.